Where should I start?
Nice. Okay. For me, especially with what you're describing from this look from the outside in, but if I'm thinking kind of in milestones or big life moments that have shifted things,
Mm-hmm.
um, the biggest one that comes to mind that is the most recent is COVID. So we'll start in 2020, and then maybe we can go backwards from there a little
Okay.
bit, and then forwards from there a
All
little
right.
bit too,
Yeah.
because it's like a really good literal like line in the sand where like all of our lives changed in big ways, but then also I think individually how that splintered out into people's lives is probably very different and unique from one person to the next. Um, but we'll start there. So we and then I do want to figure out how to wrap this into like answering the question still. But what sparked my personal journey of turning inward more than I ever have in my life
Mm-hmm.
was COVID. I didn't even know it was happening at the time because we didn't know we were going into quarantine and lockdowns and extra time indoors and all that stuff. But what was kind of brewing and changing underneath the surface because of what was happening in the world was basically setting up for 2020 into 2021 to be like the biggest personal shift that I've had in my life,
Mm-hmm.
turning inwards. Having a daughter in 2020 was a big spark for that. COVID was a big spark for that. But I'll just give you some context. So, me and Allie find out we're pregnant after like 4 or 5 years of trying. Um, got pregnant, which was amazing. And then I remember we booked this trip. I'm working at Happy Money at the time. Um, we booked a trip to Barcelona to see our investors slash friends who are the main investors in Neat Coffee, our coffee shop.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was our first time to be able to travel over there. They had a house there. Um, we love being able to travel, but like integrate into other people's lives rather than have to do like kind of we don't like to roll in the tourist way.
Yep.
So having people that live there that we're actually staying in their house is just like epic for us. And so
It's cool.
we
So
had
you
the
kind of just end up
opportunity.
doing what they do.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
So that was February of 2020. We go over.
Yeah.
Allie's pregnant. Yeah, I know. You just
Yeah.
feel it
And
coming.
you guys know at this point, right?
That we're pregnant. Yes,
Okay.
yes. Um, so we have an amazing time there. They have 3 kids. Yeah, they have 3 kids. We do literally what you just said. We have jet lag. Allie's pregnant. She hasn't told them yet. Um, I think we tell them and surprise them on like the third night there with their
Mm-hmm.
family.
Mm-hmm.
We have their kids solve a game of hangman. Kind of, it's very
Oh, that's fun.
solidified in my mind, like this experience. It felt much like a movie. We're having like pasta that they made in their basement area of this really rad house in Barcelona. Their 3 kids are there. Like the mom and the dad are friends are like prepping dinner, and then we're having them solve a hangman puzzle, and then they are just about to solve it, and then like the mom wife Christine comes in and she like can see the rest of the puzzle, and then she like starts tearing up, and like she solves it before the kids do,
Mm-hmm.
and then the kids finally do it and they're like all jumping up and down, and so that's how we told our friends
Oh,
there
that's
in
fun.
Barcelona. So it was super fun and celebratory. And then the rest of that week was super cool, just yeah, doing what they did. Had some rainy weather, had some regular weather. It was great, but the way it ended was so trippy because I remember we were watching a soccer game with them. I think they're into Real Madrid. It's like a Sunday morning. I believe it was our last morning there, and morning in Barcelona there, or maybe it was going into evening. I forget the time difference, but that's when Kobe died in the helicopter crash.
Okay.
And so we're finding it out on their news as it just happened,
Mm-hmm.
but from morning in California, because it
Mm-hmm.
like happened right around our area,
Mm-hmm.
in these hills over here. Um, but we're getting that news. It must have been evening time in Barcelona, and I think it was the evening before we left home. So that was crazy. And Allie really like grew up loving Kobe,
Mm-hmm.
and like uh, she played basketball in high school, but she was like he was the main star for her, and
Yep.
she had like posters of Kobe up in her room and stuff like that in high school. So that was like shocking and such a big deal. So we're like figuring out even what that feels like and what that means to lose Kobe. Next morning, fly home, and I remember on the prep for the flight in the airport, the first COVID case happened in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
and there was like bubbling of talking about it, and I think it was still called whatever flu early on there, like Wuhan flu or something like that.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so all that to say, it's setting up just like such a big shift to happen while we're in the air, flying back, which is so crazy.
Yeah.
So there's like, I think there's one or two cases in the US that we know of at the time. We take off and we land, and there's like more. Like the first person in Seattle got it at that point. I think there's one in Arizona or West Coast, Orange
Oh
County
man.
more, New York, whatever. So
It's got
that
those like
starts
zombie apocalypse vibes.
totally. Yeah. But it still took the US like a few weeks to figure out what to do and
Yeah.
and the world. It was kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So I just remember that trip ended, come back, still go to my normal job at Happy Money. We have a new office building, brand new. I could help design it with the team there over like a year and a half, like full. They had dreams of making it a campus and having multiple buildings on it and grow the company. And it was at the height of us doing really well, company wise. We opened the new office. We're in it for 10 working days, so 2 weeks. And then COVID fully happened. And I really like this about Happy Money and the leadership there. They made the early call, like even before the 10 days happened and the first quarantine happened. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, we're going full remote as a company, like
Wow.
100%.
After that massive investment to this
Yeah.
new
Yeah. They've
facility.
been literally building it from the ground up and decorating it and hiring interior designers and furniture
Wow.
designers and this whole thing for like 2 years. And then they're just like, wait, like this is the best for our people and our employees, and we're going to go full remote and like commit to it early on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that shifted my whole work experience. Um, okay, so where do we go next? So then I'm working remote for the first time. Fast forward a few months, COVID's happening, lockdowns, all of that stuff. Um, Kind of all the craziness that brought. Our daughter was born in September of 2020. That was like another life changing moment. Even the reliving the experience of having her in the hospital in Kaiser and Irvine.
Mm-hmm.
It was like September, so we had California fires. So we had
Yep.
ash and like literally like red skies, orange skies.
Yep.
Um, I had to wear a mask the whole time. Allie luckily didn't, but I could only visit part of the time in the room, and if I exited the premises, I couldn't come back. So like I couldn't get stuff in her car. Like um,
Dang.
I actually luckily I talked to the security guard, and he was nice. I made the mistake of leaving our Trader Joe's snack bag
Oh, you can't forget that.
before in the car, and that was like too key
Yeah.
to leave. And so
Yep.
luckily the guy was nice and let me go to the car and get it and come back. But it was just a whole trippy experience. Um, we have Millie. She's in the NICU for 2 days, which is like its own little scare, but ended up working out great. We bring her home on my birthday, the 8th of September. I don't even register that I turn a year older that day because like I'm so elated to bring Millie home and to have her out of the hospital and healthy, and still thinking about her birth and her birthday being 2 days before. But like that felt like another birthday for her, bringing her home. And then
Mm-hmm.
it took me like my family came over and brought like a little cake or cupcakes or something for me separately from seeing Millie. They like literally saw Millie, visited with us, left, came back, brought me like cupcakes for my birthday, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's my
Oh,
birthday! I forgot."
yep.
Um,
Yeah. The first kid coming home will make you forget everything.
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
it's it's wild.
yeah. Um, so that's kind of all the context setting for like I'm working fully remote. I have a desk in my living room. We have Millie as a newborn in September of 2020, and that kind of all sets up 2021 January to be like stuff is different now. Like
Mm-hmm.
over that first 6 months of COVID, we've slowly phased out of playing at church music wise. For me, it was kind of like this order of like, um, there's not in service or in person services to play for, and then it took people like a month to figure it out. But and then I go to like recording, you know, drums for live sessions rather than live services, and they're
Mm-hmm.
pre-recorded, and then the the music is separate from the sermon, so then we're like catching some online and catching some in person as I play it, and it's this whole
Mm-hmm.
thing. um, but that it starts to kind of pull stuff apart and pause certain things like forcibly, and so that was all setting up January of 2021 to be like, I just felt this is going to be a big year of personal change. I started with a focus on my physical habits
Mm-hmm.
um, that year, and it was pretty easy, basic stuff. Is like cardio and push-ups and sit-ups, and starting to work out regularly. And there's just a focus on the simple stuff for my physical body and my health.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of like threw in there in that mix of my habits, meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I started with 10 minutes. And it just felt like one of the other mixes or another thing in top of working out and the physical stuff. So I was like, I do this amount of push-ups, sit-ups, whatever. And then I was like, let me try adding meditation for the first
Mm-hmm.
time. Um, that mix of habits plus experimenting for the first time with meditation, plus what that kind of brew of stuff turned into when I got sparked even a little bit about UFOs. That was kind of my catalyst, and aliens. Um, and that was not planned like in that order, but that's kind of how it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I could talk through it a little bit more in detail. But like it was like physical body focused. Let me experiment with meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Start doing meditation regularly too.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, it's like 10 to 15 minute YouTube videos that are very straightforward, nothing too out there.
Okay.
It's very just like guided, a little bit of breathing in the beginning, but
Mm-hmm.
like I was still not struggling, but it was still a lot for me to close in on 10 and then 15 minutes eventually
Yep.
in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But even that mind space, that clarity, that feeling of pushing through because of consistency and to actually getting to a place even 10, 15 minutes, like after a few weeks I would be able to get into this place of like fully clear and peaceful mind. And I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like that felt also physically in my body very different
Mm-hmm.
than what I've experienced before. um, and I think that sparked that hunger to go into myself even harder,
Mm-hmm.
because I would journal right out of alchemy, like right out of these meditations. I would finish them. I started pushing them longer, experimenting with different types,
Mm-hmm.
some with just like audio only, like music only,
Mm-hmm.
or like sound bowls only, or this thing called hemisync where they're like playing different tones in different
Yep.
ears and like very minimal talking. Um, pushing past like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, on some. And I would try these different forms. And I was still working at Happy Money at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it was this personal challenge to get my work done, make sure my team was okay. I was managing a team of 5 people at that time. And because I was remote, if I feel like I'm doing my work well, I would set myself up in this office and I'd be like, I'm going to do a 45-minute intense like meditation right now
Nice.
and just practice and figure that out. And then I would exit that journey and journal. I would see a lot of symbols and colors and things and feel different things, and it would trigger different emotional experiences. And it was really good. So I just got into that habit, practice, journal after meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of like the brew when UFOs and studying them or researching them even a little bit kind of like felt like it cracked open this like, wow, the world is a lot bigger than I let myself think. And I had the inner part happening
Mm-hmm.
and being explored, and it felt like exploring space inner, and then
Yep.
UFOs was like my door to explore space outward
Yep.
in
Yep.
the physical world,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of like exploded at the same time.
Yep.
And honestly, that's for me. If I had to answer where should I start, for me that, and not UFOs or aliens being the exact door or spark,
Uh-huh.
But I think meditation would be where I would tell myself a younger version or at a previous year in my life
Mm-hmm.
where I would say, like, start practicing meditation
Okay.
because the ability to sit with myself,
Mm.
to be with my own thoughts, to see what was in there, to not judge it, to learn how to be this idea of the observer.
Mm.
Um, they call it the witness sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
That you, it was that, and that was like, it wasn't hard or difficult, but it was you couldn't rush that process. I couldn't speed through learning this stuff.
Mm.
Um, it was stuff that started to seep in this inner knowing or having to have experienced certain types of meditation or the feeling during it, and then I would like come out of it and be like, wow, or I would attach to a certain phrase that in this meditation they happen to say, and I'd be like, oh, I've never heard it phrased like that, or like I
Mm.
never knew I could learn to be the observer of my thoughts, or to have someone clearly say in a meditation, you are not your body, you are not your thoughts, you
Mm.
are you are the witness witnessing those things.
Mm.
And it felt very countercultural, felt very counter of what I grew up in, and
Mm-hmm.
not in a bad way, just like different.
Yeah.
Like I was kind of, I think though our society kind of, the whole culture helps us think, and the systems kind of are pointed at like, no, you are your thoughts. Like we
Yeah.
we want to, good or bad, we want to influence your thoughts, we want to help you guide your thoughts, we help you know what to do with those thoughts, we want to capture your thoughts and
Yeah.
attention to sell you things,
Yep.
whatever it is. We have program for to offer you for your thoughts to help you think a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
But there was never the thought to me until I started meditating and had that space between myself
Mm.
that I am not the thoughts that happen in my brain.
Mm.
And that was like crazy to me. Um, And so I think that would be, yeah, that would be my main thing I would say start on for me if I was talking to my younger self. Um, and then from there, I would say it's become a journey of more self exploring and self discovery and personal development. Um, I would say the word that's coming up is intuition. Like
Okay.
if you're able to connect with what you learn to be your truer self, that is not your body and not your mind
Mm-hmm.
and not the thoughts going on, and if you're able to sit with that person, that soul, that entity, whatever you want to call it, your
Mm-hmm.
divine spark, and you're able to get to know that being, um, that being is pure intuition. That being
Mm.
is, I like to call it my higher self. You can call it your inner self, your inner child, your soul, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
whatever words you want to use for it.
Mm-hmm.
That version of me that is not encumbered in any way by mind thoughts or body physical things
Mm.
is your truest form of intuition and what you are made to do in life and your purpose and what you want to do, what you're craving.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that is kind of the feeling is it's there waiting for you, and
Mm.
it's not rushing you. It's not saying please change me or bring me out more. It's not like screaming at you. It's just there as your most powerful higher self that is
Mm.
the closest connected to God and source,
Mm-hmm.
that is outside of your body and mind. And so I think meditation is literally like, it was my personal gate door experience to realize that person is out there, that being is out there, that is me,
Mm-hmm.
that spark lives inside of me. And it became a practice of not just meditation because I got quote unquote good at that, or I had the habit down of doing that for myself, but it more became this like, what's higher self Dave, where does he want to go in life,
Mm.
and where do I feel stuck, where am I not letting intuition come in, where am I getting intuition confused with cravings and wants and needs that I thought
Mm.
I had. So there's a
All those
lot of
attachments and
untangling.
stuff. Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of untangling there because like at first when you kind of get to the spot where you're like, you could see I'm the witness, I'm the observer to my own soul, let's say. um, it's hard to tell of like the I'm hungry and I want food versus like
Mm.
I want something different. Like you have to kind of separate those base level
Right.
urges and
Yep.
figure out what to do with some of that kind of base level stuff. But past that, it's been these nudges, pings, whatever you want to call them, through meditation, through journaling, through knowing myself better, that
Mm-hmm.
is like, it's not like here's the next step to do. It's like you want to do this. You didn't know.
Mm.
You haven't been hearing it, or you forgot that you wanted to do this, or you blocked it from happening, or there's
Mm-hmm.
resistance because you didn't let yourself go there before, or in 10 years, or like those things are the desires are there, but it feels more of like a archaeological like dig,
Mm.
uncovering your own like, oh, I forgot. Like hearing you describe stuff about me, one is making me stoked because that's all the stuff that I'm removing towards in my life
Uh-huh.
as someone who is not doing away with labels, but I'm re-putting correct labels on myself
Mm.
that I want to be called in terms of a creator, an artist. Uh, do I still like creative director? Do I still like designer? Do I still like these labels and roles of career pegs that I've kind of collected along the way?
So is it more
Um,
like they're before they were sources of identity as to who you are, and now they're being shifted to being more like you said, like instead of being an identity, it's just a label on a box of like this is what I do. It's not
yes.
necessarily who I am. So now it's appropriate. It's an
Yeah.
appropriate label instead of a clinging to label. Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And in that process too, for me, there was at first the labels were what I strove. Is that the word? Strove. Striving.
Strivated.
Striving. Those are what I went after.
Hmm.
Not even necessarily the ones that I fully had as part of my identity, but even the striving for them was making them part of my identity. But I had
Mm.
this really big urge to be a creative director and have that title officially placed on me to feel
Mm.
validated in that.
Hmm.
And that
And
was a
so
big
then
part of my work
everything
journey.
so then everything was, or not everything, but there's a lot of energy and effort focused at attaining that,
Yes.
trying to get it, and then once you got it, the effort then goes into holding on to it at
Yeah.
all costs, because if you
Yeah.
let
Yeah.
go of that, what are
That's
you, who
everything.
are you,
Yeah.
why are you,
Yeah.
like all
Yeah.
those things start happening.
Yeah. Um, so like, yeah, I wonder where we should take it now. But basically, where I'm at now is that kind of 4 5 year chunk now, between COVID, 2021's kind of sparking my personal development kind of season.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's been a progression, a journey of feels like remembering more of who I truly am,
Mm.
removing blockages, resistance, healing parts of myself that have not been ready to go after the things I really want to go after.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Why do you think that is, that um, there's a hesitation, or a fear, or however you want to describe it?
yeah,
I'll let you put that qualifier
sure.
on it. What was the hesitation from pursuing those things that you want? Now looking back, I'm sure
Yeah.
there's things that have been revealed. There's still more to be revealed, but for those things that have been revealed so far, are you able to pinpoint where that hesitation was, or with a fear, or whatever it is, to go after those things you wanted once they were identified?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll give you some that come to mind.
Okay.
Um, let's talk about like the creative director title is a good one for me to talk about because it was my ceiling that I wanted to hit, or
Mm.
ended up being my ceiling once I had that title.
Mm-hmm.
That ceiling became my ground floor, and that kind of switched everything up for me. So, short version of that, even that role for me at Happy Money at my previous job was I was doing the work of a creative director.
Mm-hmm.
This has kind of been a thing for me at jobs before. I kind of get inner frustrated because the outside company is not reflecting back to me the stuff that I'm actually doing already. And that's a
Okay.
little bit of a carrot
Yep.
ladder corporate situation thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so playing that game is annoying for me. I've gotten better at it. I got better at it by doing it at Happy Money. Still don't like the game,
Yep.
but I do understand it a little bit more now. And so like literally is for me like it sounds so funny to talk about now though. Like I was a brand design lead, so I was doing brand design for a fintech company.
Okay.
Okay, I managed one designer. Then I became associate creative director, which was literally like a label that was created, a role that was created to give me another stepping stone so that I didn't go straight to creative director, but to
Okay.
give me more time
Okay.
and to have them more time and more headroom to like give me a raise in the future or whatever it was. But
Okay.
they created like a step in between as
Okay.
associate creative director. So then I was managing a team of uh, three designers, a writer, and a producer. So five. That was my little creative team. Loved them. Super, super cool. That got to happen during COVID. And that's when I feel like, wow, I'm really doing the stuff that I like. And I started to not care as much that I had the associate kind of tag in front of the creative director. I was just grateful to have a cool team, be able to be in the managing, directing position for like a good chunk of time rather than just like temporarily or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And started to really like that. Um,
So it was the work itself that brought you the fulfillment, not necessarily the title.
yeah. Hmm.
And the huh, once you got to that point of being able to be freed up to do the work the way you wanted to do the work, did that become the focus, or did that slowly lose its shine? And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
you're
yeah. I think what you said, like me learning to manage the team and do the work itself, became not only so fun and so fulfilling, but it ended up being like, yeah, I would say like saving grace might be too strong of a word, but it was a really good thing to focus my energy on
mm,
because the happy money corporate side of the story was so tumultuous. We had three different CEOs in a 3 year time period.
mm-hmm,
And so there wasn't actually a lot of stability literally in the company, in the finances, we're laying people off. But I had my team to focus on
mm-hmm.
and I enjoyed it so much and I was doing it really well. So it actually gave me this like kind of sheltered area to be like,
I can
my
control
boss
this.
could, yeah, my boss could change. The CEO literally could change. We could change directions as a company.
Mm-hmm,
At that time, I was like grateful to have a full remote position when other friends and family didn't.
mm-hmm,
I was doing creative work. I was managing instead of designing myself, which I
mm-hmm.
really liked. And I'm really good with people and relationships. And I had built these relationships into like, and I say this from my perspective, I think it is possible to be friends and coworkers with people.
Yep.
I've not had that experience go well with other people or other managers, and I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But like the way I can do it, I can exit that relationship and be like, I was your boss and I'm your friend, and I
Yeah.
feel good about my ability to do that. And
Yep.
so that kind of team was my like kind of shelter in the crazy storm of different waves happening at Happy Money. Um, what ended up happening though was that team shelter bubble scenario was really good for me to kind of build confidence. Basically is like the feeling that like I can do it, I'm getting recognized to do it, I have chances to do it more in crazier tumultuous times. Can I still do this when like my CMO above me is leaving, the CEO above her is leaving, like we're rebranding the company with a new mission and I'm leading that charge, and then we get the project to like 95% and then they shelve it. Like can I take those hits? Can I insulate my
Mm,
team from still being able to like, guys, we did some really good work. It's never going to see the light of day.
mm.
Like can we survive that hit, you know?
Dude, yeah, because as a creative, that
Oh,
is
it's the
that is
hardest
the
thing.
biggest kick in the dick to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
not only it man. Sorry, I'm having flashbacks and
I
I'm getting
know.
triggered
I know. It's
because
so
it's like
many.
because it's one thing because I know for a fact you've been in this position where a client comes to you and you execute on their vision and you hate the outcome, but they're happy.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, I
Mm-hmm.
hope this never sees the light of day.
Yes.
But it's going to, but they're happy.
Yeah. I
I
did the
wish it
job.
would, yep, I did the job. They're happy. It is what it is. But then
Yeah.
there's the other side of, you execute on it exactly like you want. You package this beautiful solution that checks all the boxes and is like, man, this is it. And then they're like, no, and you're like, oh, like
Yeah,
all this work, all the excitement. I mean, it's almost like a little death. It's like
it is totally,
it and it sucks.
totally is.
As like, yeah. So I totally understand that feeling. So sorry.
Yeah.
So keep going.
Yeah, I think for me, even as hearing you reflect on that too, and like experiencing that trauma from your side of things too, for me, like looking back in hindsight on that, it was reps and it was getting me
Mm,
good at being able to handle that stuff. Because I think as long as I'm in creative work, I think that's still going to happen.
yeah.
I think it will feel different if I'm the director of the project or a designer on the project. And so I've got to feel those different spots and roles and how that hits and
Mm,
um, even ability to have a project get canned or change significantly, like what to do with a team under you, is a whole challenge of itself. To like keep morale up, to
yeah.
refocus on something else, to not have people want to leave.
Yeah. Keep everybody
Um,
excited and on the same page and
yeah, but also not like not bullshit people and not
yeah.
like not fake it and not like I've never been a person or a manager or a boss that's like overly sold out on the corporate mission, so I'm like playing the company side of things. Like I'll tell people transparently like what's going on as much as I can and all of that. So
Yeah.
it felt like these reps where I was learning how to take different situations and learn from them and be able to survive them or thrive of them in them. What eventually happens is I finally get that official creative director title. I think it was my CMO who gave me that title after like a year and a half of the previous one.
Hmm.
And then basically before she left the company, she was like, "You got that title." And then she left. And I was like, "Great, cool." Um, I have it. And then it must have been like 6 months that I had it before then the layoffs finally got to my team
Hmm.
and the company overall was not doing good. And this was more like economy swings and we were in
Yeah.
personal lending. So it's like, it
Yeah.
was very much just tied
Not the
to,
best market at that time.
yeah, what the federal rate is doing and
Yeah.
how money's moving around and all that, to me, boring stuff, but it was actually affecting people. Um, so then it very quickly was like, my team gets cut, half of them, and then it's down to me and my original designer. Her name's Sally. She's awesome. And so it was like I went from a team of five to a team of one managing, um, and it felt
What
very
was that
old
hit like?
school.
What was that hit like going from you finally, I'm a creative
I
director,
know.
to
Yeah.
then all of a sudden like kinda like
Yes.
what was that
Yes.
hit like? Like what was going through your mind and was this in a time when um like where were you at in the meditation
Yeah.
learning in phase? Like were you able to sit with that and observe those feelings and the nuance in that, or was it just because it was chaos you didn't have time to sit with it, or what
Yeah.
was going on during that time?
Yeah. I think it was actively happening. It must have been the end of 2023.
Okay.
And yes, I was very deep on my personal, you know, self development journey. It felt like I had very much separated my personal development and like me being at peace with myself. There was enough separation between that and work. I was not personally invested in work as much as I was, and
Mm-hmm.
I still think that was a healthy thing at that time
Mm-hmm.
because I tend to kind of because of some of the strengths that you even talked about seeing in me, like I have a tendency to get overly personally involved, where it's like I'm pouring too much of my heart
Yeah.
into the creative vision of what is truly just a money making capitalistic corporate company
Yeah.
that
Yep.
is I think what shifted it and helped me disconnect from being taking stuff too personally so that when my team did get laid off, I wasn't as like enraged or thrown off or whatever,
Uh-huh.
was when I saw our CEO leave and he was the founder of the company.
Mm.
And then and this is nothing against the guy, but when he basically turned around and then bought a brand new custom house in Wyoming, after leaving the company that he founded, and the company is like laying off 50% of its workforce. That kind of did something for me where I was like, you still got out very fine and you're
Right.
okay. And then these half the people lost their jobs and they're not going to maybe even find a job for months at a
Mm.
time. And their
Mm-hmm.
salary directly affects how they're doing in life.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was like a forcing function for me to be like, I can't love the company and the mission more than the founder himself and more
Mm.
than his willingness and ability to just like drop it. He's out of the company and he's like, "Thank you. I'm off to live my life." And that's just how the game works
Yeah.
when you're playing in corporate America. And
Yeah.
so I had to kind of learn that. So that I think all that to say, I was in a very personal, good spot because I felt solid in myself, very into my meditation and personal journey. Um, when half my team got let go, I just remember being able to be very personal with them and take care of them as best I could.
Mm-hmm.
So I did lunches with them like individually after they had got laid off, and I was more concerned with, and they knew me as a person and as a boss at that point, that they
Mm-hmm.
like
It wasn't like a
they
weird thing.
no,
Yeah.
they were like,
There's relationship there that.
yeah, they were
Yeah.
shocked. I was shocked, but they knew I didn't like play. They knew it was over my head, and so we just got to kind of be friends in that aspect
Mm.
and exit that work relationship really well because they knew it wasn't my decision at all. They know I care about them because of how I managed when I had them on my team,
Mm-hmm.
and I referred them all to places, and then it was good. And so I think that was a good experience of me like I'm not going to be best buddies and stick around with everybody that I meet on my career journey,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not going to be like the team that I have forever. Like everything
Mm.
is moving and changing all the time, and so really that's sparking something else. Like what 2020, even just on the career side, 2020 to 2024 did for me was I had to get used to change. And I was not prone to liking change before. Even saying that now makes me think of my dad.
Oh
like
yeah.
like makes me think of when I first got to Happy Money as a less experienced product app designer, which is what I joined the company as.
Okay.
Whenever major shifts in the company happened, because that was my first time working at a corporate job rather than at an agency, when shifts happened, I would be like, oh my God, like I'm so mad, I'm so distraught, like I need a one-on-one with my
Mm.
boss, I need to talk it out, like why are they doing this, what's going to happen next, like all the
Mm.
unknowns that it caused. I was not good at that change at a corporate level. What 2020 to 2024 did was like 4 years where I stuck with the job longer than I ever have.
Mm-hmm.
Like my longest job before Happy Money was 1.5 years or 2 years maybe as a role.
Mm-hmm.
And I left Happy Money at the end. I got laid off, which I'll talk about, after 7.5 years, I think.
Wow.
And that time difference is just more than I ever put into anywhere else. So that chunk of 4 years was literally just like, it felt like a wave of change happening. COVID, no building, fully remote, having a daughter at home, personal development. CEO leaves, new CEO comes in. CEO leaves again, new CEO comes in. CMO comes in from PepsiCo, and she's like the biggest hire that the company's ever had. Whatever, she's your new boss. You're moving from product to marketing as a team. Like you have 5 people on your team that you're managing. Oh, they're all gone. like that amount of change just felt like I had to. In corporate speak, it's like called growth mindset, and I think I learned about growth mindset through a corporate version of it, but then I was doing the growth mindset in my personal life.
Mm-hmm.
And when I connected those two things and thought like, no, I could have growth mindset and be adept at change and comfortable with change and be on my feet and ready to go during change in my personal life.
Mm.
And I think what happened is there was so much change at my job that it made me zoom out my life and be like, and again, I'm not my body exactly. I'm not my thoughts. I am a bigger being entity, and I'm not my job. And so I think all that change showed me like, not only am I hanging in there, am I getting the role that I want, am I managing the team? Oh, they're all gone. I'm surviving that change. It started to force me to zoom out my lens on my life and be like, oh, like once you get good at change and comfortable with it,
Mm,
you can do anything. And I don't think I had broke past that barrier before for my work life, which then spilled into my personal life. I hadn't broke
mm-hmm,
through that barrier because I was so adverse to change, hadn't experienced so much change at once, and then haven't survived the change in a way that felt like it started to feel like riding waves, like surfing. And I
mm,
know you've surfed, I don't surf, but like metaphorically, that's the closest thing even
yeah.
now that I use that like life can send me another wave and I could choose to like get crashed in the face from it, or I
Mm-hmm.
could choose to prep for it as fast as I can, get ready, paddle, and then catch it as best as I can. And that's
Right.
kind of my choices. And the corporate version of that was like I got pounded by barrels for like 4 years. And then I was ready after that to be like,
Mm,
oh, I could just be always growing, always changing, always pushing myself to get better as a person, whether I'm working in a corporate place or not.
mm-hmm.
It's worth investing in myself. That's what I learned. A big thing of like turning inward with meditation. I ended up getting a personal like life business coach for the first time in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that was a big moment for me of like investing that much money into yourself. You have to convince yourself that you're worth it. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like, meditation is the same thing. You're just doing it with time rather than money. It's an
Mm-hmm.
investment in yourself. You're not going to see the benefit of that for a long time because it's under the surface. Like
Mm.
in my workday, for me to take 30 minutes and not work on my corporate stuff and to spend in silence on myself, like to the outside world, that seems like you're wasting time.
Right.
And so
But you're
even
choosing
building
to
up that,
invest it. Yeah, you're choosing to invest instead. Yeah, you're making that distinction that at this time you are worth more of that time, more
yes,
deserving of that time than
yes,
this thing. That
this job, this
that
family
may
situation too, it's included like that, and that
yeah,
part's hard, but like
yeah.
how I did it was include Allie that I was transparent with everything and she knew what I was what habit wise what I was getting into.
Mm-hmm.
I think it worked out really well for me because I had this corporate structure of like I work 9 to 5 in my shed office,
Mm-hmm.
and so if I'm able to fit meditation within those hours, it doesn't step on my family time at all, and that was
Mm-hmm.
a nice kind of boundary to have.
Yep.
Um, that's a little bit different now, more malleable, which is cool. But it became she saw, and I've heard her tell friends my version of the story, but from her perspective,
Uh-huh.
and it's super cool because she's like, when Dave started investing in himself, it like helped our whole family. It like changed
Mm.
him as a person. It exploded in a positive way stuff in our family.
Mm-hmm.
It makes her looking more introspective because she's like, whatever Dave's doing over there
Something's
in his
working.
office, something's happening and something's
Yeah.
working. His attitude is different, how he can handle change, how he can come in and be at
Mm.
peace. I made it a habit to end my workday with meditating. Once I
Mm-hmm.
got good at it and consistent at it, I would always end my workday with a meditation because I saw it as like a clearing between what I did. So I would like give myself to have a
Mm.
break before I walked into the house and was with Millie and Allie.
Mm-hmm.
And even that small 20-minute break, whether I didn't learn anything new or discovered something personally, just having that break was so helpful for me because I came in as a calm, process all
Yeah.
my thoughts already person,
Mm-hmm.
and then able to be present. So that was a big thing too.
Man, there's so many
I know there's
things in
so
here
much.
that I want to um so um during your workday, do you still regularly find yourself in the middle of your, for like better terms, 9 to 5, taking
Mhm.
those meditation breaks, and then what is it that triggers those? You're accepting the need that you have
Mm.
to take those breaks. Like, is there
Yeah.
is there a particular event, conversation, post meeting, pre meeting? Like, what is it that you look at yourself of like, or what are those triggers for you of like, okay, I need to take 10 minutes,
Yeah.
shut off communications,
Yeah.
throw on the earbuds, get some binaural beats or like guided
Hmm.
meditation or whatever's going on. What are
Hmm.
those triggers for you during your actual workday that make it the justification for you, like this is valuable
For me to still do.
for me to do right now because
Hmm.
of the long-term effect it's going to have for me personally, for my family, and even for my job currently.
Hmm. Hmm.
So what are
Yeah.
those triggers that you look at for yourself?
Yeah. Great question. Um, I'll use this as an opportunity to just catch up the job story to where I'm currently at because it
Cool.
changed my schedule.
Okay.
Um, In April of 2024 last year, my boss was very he graciously gave me a 3-day heads up that a layoff was happening. It was just the third one, I think, at that point that I had
Mm-hmm.
survived, or but that one included my team,
Okay.
including me. And
Okay.
so it was just down to me and Sally as the only designers for the company. I had given up this, like, I'm not really a creative director anymore because I'm only managing one person and we're both doing
The
like
work.
the work, and the work was like keep the lights on. Like I'm back to doing email campaigns and direct
Oh,
mail
yep.
design and like the
Yep.
very basic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like for like a 3 month time.
Okay.
And so when it was just me and Sally, I already felt like this is obviously not the role I want to do. I'm happy to still have Sally. It made the creative director title not mean as much, and
Yep.
in a healthy way start to disconnect that I reached that title. I had the team, we had the budgets to do stuff, and then it went away.
Mm.
And it was actually good for me to not fake like I'm still creative director doing the thing. Like it was just a shell of a company that still had a
Mm-hmm.
creative director role that I was fulfilling and a designer. But
Was
when my
that was
boss
that
gave
a
me
hard was that a hard separation to make of at that
where
time?
where it hit my life, no, because I have this natural. It's happened basically every year in January. I'm not like a big New Year's resolution guy, but I'm like a goal setter or what's the theme of my year, or I just
Yep.
do like to look at my year ahead.
Yeah, kind of like
And
refocus,
yeah,
readjust.
and like out of the 7 years I was at Happy Money, like four of them in January of whatever year, I'm like, this is my year to leave. I'm gonna get out of here. Like I've done XYZ well or whatever, but I want to get out of here. And I tried that a bunch of times, but I still had more to learn and more to do at Happy Money.
Yeah.
But this last time in 2024, I was like, there's been two layoffs. I lost my team. I'm down to just me and Sally. I'm not even doing the stuff that I want to do. And I knew enough of what was on the horizon, not looking good for Happy Money. And I'm like, there's no secret budget coming back to be like, you have
Mm.
your team back and you have a new
Yeah.
website to
You,
do and we're
you
going to
knew that
relaunch this
at some point.
campaign. Like,
Yeah, at some point you knew it was coming.
yeah, yeah. So because I felt that even in January, February, um, I was ready that year to quit if I didn't get laid off. And so that's the energy I was in 2024 anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was in that energy and that feeling in like February and March. And I was like, I don't know when the next one's coming. They usually do it around the quarter marks, like, so like, is
Yeah.
it going to be end of March? Is it going to happen? Is it going to be end of the next second quarter? So I remember like being ready in March. And I think he told me 3 days before it happened, which was like the end of March. Basically, I remember it so well because April Fool's Day was on a Monday
Okay.
in 2024. And they're like, we can't lay people off on April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
So they're like, we have to do it on the Tuesday on the 2nd. And
Okay.
so he told me like the Thursday or Friday before that, which was still in March, but it was on the quarter flip
Yep.
over from
Yep.
quarter one to quarter two. And so he called me. He was like, basically like everything was exactly how, I don't know, there's a lot to talk about in this part. But a
I got
quick
all the time.
version, okay. The quick version is, and also of that year, I was ready to quit, looking at other spots, like, and I still thought I was going to like kind of work for another company at that point. I was looking at my options, getting my portfolio ready, which I hate doing, but you got
Oh,
to
it's the
do it
worst.
sometimes. I know.
Especially if you
Um,
don't maintain it.
yes,
You're like,
yes,
oh.
yeah. And so I'm getting that ready, and then that's when I made my first, pulled the trigger on my first personal coach, big money investment up front.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started that in February, personal
Okay.
coaching. So I'm in like a month and a half or 2 months of being in this coaching program. Um, it was like online videos and then a weekly call with this guy, Justin.
Okay.
He's great. And so much work had happened on top of my personal, like when I had a coach, like I came alive in personal development because it's like I was ready and malleable and at peace with myself
Mm-hmm.
to when someone came in with some like clear instructions and a structure to be like, this is how you find your subconscious beliefs and go after them and change them. This is how you have self-love for yourself and talk as good to yourself as you would to a best friend.
Mm.
Like this is how you change your habits to be the person that you want to be. Is if you want to be a millionaire, you don't just keep dreaming to be a millionaire. You take on the habits and the lifestyles of a
Mm.
millionaire, and all those those concrete things that like a coach would come in and provide structure for,
Right.
like I was eating it up. And
Yeah.
so,
It's like the things you know, but you don't know how to say, or
yes,
you don't quite know how to pluck it out of the ether, and
yeah,
they kind of give it shape and tangible
totally.
substance that
Yeah.
you can
It
then
was like
say,
an
oh,
outline. It was a course. It was
yeah,
like, it was follow these steps, and there was a theme each week. And I liked having a theme where I'm only focusing on, you know, self identity, or whatever the themes were.
hmm,
So that was really good. So much so that I was like, I was vibing. I was doing so well with my personal coaching that I literally in my mind, and I was already on board with this idea of like, I create my reality with my thoughts.
hmm,
And we create how we, even what physically happens around us, we create that in some way starting in our minds.
hmm,
And that's where it all starts. And I
yep,
was, once those connections were made for me, because of my meditation journey and history and being at peace with myself and feeling like I can do some really powerful stuff when I'm in my mind and I know what to use meditation for, and kind of I had that practice down.
hmm,
Once I found out that kind of like secret sauce of like, no, you're shaping your world around you by your thoughts. I was like, I remember journaling about it. I was like, I want to get laid off in this specific way. So I want my boss to basically, I want it to feel as easy as possible. I don't want anyone to be hurt. Like that
hmm,
was the first things, like the relationships. But I
right,
would envision how I wanted it to go, like very detailed. And it's
mm,
exactly how it happened. And so that was my first major reflection back of the stuff that I was being coached on,
mm,
working in such a tangible, big life experience, like milestone kind of way, where I was
hmm,
like, it worked, and that's crazy, and oh my gosh. But
yeah,
basically, my boss calls me. It's a Friday. I didn't have work to do, like, because I did it all that day. And then was like just keeping the lights on. I was sitting at my living room table, and he's like, he just goes into these nice things about me and saying all the, and I knew right away.
yeah,
And as he's basically saying like, and on Tuesday this is going to happen, he starts crying, and he's crying about letting me go.
mm,
And I'm letting him say stuff, and I'm like, thank you, Adam, that's so nice, so gracious. Like, I felt it coming. I want this to happen. I've already been prepping for this. And so I just need to say thank you. And you need to shift this metaphor in your mind of how it feels to let me go. I was like, this is rocket fuel for me. Like, this
mm,
is the boost that I needed to do my next thing. And at that point, because of personal coaching, I had made the decision between like February and March of that year that I would not be going back to a corporate job. It kind of
mm,
clicked into place. I'm like, if I get laid off in this way that I want, I'm going to work for myself after that.
mm,
And so he's telling me these things and then give me a chance to respond back to him. And I'm like, please don't view it as like you're putting me in financial hardship or you're responsible for my family surviving. Like, I need this rocket fuel. I'm going to reinvest this more in myself. I know how to do that now. Like, I'm excited to go build my business, basically.
mm.
Don't worry about me. And I'm like consoling him. And he's like ending the call, like, thank you so much for understanding. Like, and we ended really well. And so he
Mm,
gave me heads up. He was basically like, don't tell Sally. And then I immediately told Sally. So she had heads up too. But he was fine with that. Like, I'm
yeah.
sure he knew. Um, we get laid off on that Tuesday. It was over a Zoom call. They had learned how to do it a better way. There's no really good way to do it, but
Yeah.
they had made some bad versions of laying people off, like
I can imagine during the
early
chaos
COVID.
of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, I think the big one was like, it was like 150 people with an email, and it came 15 minutes before their computer disconnected, but like the email went out like 10 minutes late. So they literally had 5 minutes. And then their
Oh,
computer, positive about Happy Money was they gave everyone the gear because it was in COVID and we worked remote, so it was a
hmm,
very like, you keep all your laptops or whatever gear you have, you just keep it. But like the shock of like, I have a job, I read this email, and then 5 minutes later my computer like disconnects from like
disconnect
the
the
Happy
network.
Money stuff. It's
Wow.
like that was trippy, and they got a lot of complaints about how they did that. But
Yeah.
mine was good. But that Tuesday for me, where should I shift this? Okay. I basically, well, it took me a week or two. So I get laid off. They gave us 6 weeks of severance, which was great.
Yep.
And I'm a week into that severance, and I'm like, okay, what personal projects I'm going to do, or what stuff I've been waiting to do, where I've been creatively held back, where can I just get after it now? And I was like
Mm.
stoked. And after a week of literally doing nothing but still getting paid and having that feeling of severance happen,
Uh-huh.
um, I just keep thinking of the TV show Severance
Yeah.
whenever I say that now. Um, when I got severed right then, I my body was telling me in that moment, and I was very good at listening to my body because of all
Mm.
the stuff that I talked about.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, you need to not work.
Mm.
Like, don't go getting your resume ready for where you would apply, or don't go find the next client that is going to be your first project to work on working for yourself. Like, just the feeling was after the first week where I was like, wow, this is like vacation. Then it's
Mm-hmm.
like, that's what severance can feel like, is you're getting paid to not work because they laid you off. And so I had to get kind of used to that feeling and allowing my body to feel that.
Mm-hmm.
And because like I was very, and this is not a bad thing, but I was very habitually in the grind of a 9 to 5. And
Mm-hmm.
that comes with like the schedule, when to wake up, how to be ready for meetings, your
Mm-hmm.
calendar always being crazy, and you not owning your own time is
Mm-hmm.
just part of the job. And
Yeah.
so all of that stuff to get disconnected and to have my body be like, I have no meetings today, and there's still money coming in the door because I got laid off.
Mm.
This is great. Like, wow, it was doing really good stuff for me. Um, So I decided, I think in week 2, to take the whole 6 week chunk as a sabbatical.
Mm.
And it wasn't a vacation. Like the first week, I'm like, I'm calling it a vacation. And the second week, I'm like, I'm calling it a sabbatical.
So there's
And
intentionality behind it now.
yeah, yeah. And that, I mean, like every event changed my life in some way. But like me deciding that I would take it as a sabbatical changed my life. That was the process of me disconnecting from me being a corporate design as a service worker in a bigger machine, like for better or for not, whatever. I was doing that and was very used to that. That disconnection was amazing. That spurred on the trip to Japan, and because I was on getting paid to do it rather than taking PTO,
Mm.
we decided to take Millie. We decided to make it 14 days instead of like 10 days. We just like, let's do the full thing because I'm like getting paid to do it. And so that kind of solidified that we went to Japan, took Millie, and made it a longer trip.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that for me, okay, so I'm going to get back to when I use meditation. I had built up the habit so well that literally my trip in Japan was my first time taking a break from my own meditation habits, even
Mm.
during sabbatical. I
Mm.
would keep it up. And my coach gave me really good advice. He's like, when you're on vacation, be on vacation. Like, don't even do personal development stuff. Don't watch any of the calls. Don't watch the content. Just be present. Be where you're at with your family. Enjoy that, because that rest, that disconnection, only makes you coming back better and more
Mm.
fresh, and you have more energy to get after it again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was my first time where,
Is it because like the meditation, the personal development, and all that stuff is in itself a kind of work?
yeah, yeah. I think it's a kind of work, and it's a kind of it's a good kind of structure, but it's playing into the structure that is made for my life in California,
Mm-hmm.
and doesn't have to apply to a vacation for 2 weeks in Japan. And so it was also the structure of letting myself be fully free from that structure
Mm.
that is a good thing,
Yep.
but to see what else can happen without that structure. Like,
Like
on the basic level, it's like sleeping in or whatever, or having more freedom with your time. But the other thing
right.
is like seeing how I took it on as a really cool challenge of like, oh, if I feel stressed in Japan because we get to get up and try to get to this train or whatever, like how do I respond? I don't know. Short version of the story is I would still do breathing exercises and meditate in Japan, but
Mm-hmm.
outside of my structure, and I would use it as like an as need basis.
Mm.
And that was like because I want to, and I feel like a craving for it because I haven't had it for a long time, and I just
Mm.
get to do it in the middle of the day. And Ellie and Amelia are taking a walk, and I'm just going to fit in my meditation for 15 minutes, and that being outside the structure of, or the habit of when I normally do it, just makes me look at it and appreciate it differently.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole thing kind of just like I could do it when I want to, but it's not a have to happen regimented kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Okay, so come back from Japan, I start my own business, which we can get into, but meditation as a practice and breath work, they're kind of synonymous right now with me. I end up meditating out of breath practices usually, or I always will start a longer meditation with breath work in the beginning that's guided,
Mm-hmm.
but they're kind of together in my mind at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my morning ritual, which I hit most of the time, and I started this during Happy Money, and I still keep it now, is wake up, usually before Million Alley, or maybe I was up, but I'll go to the backyard, stand in grass, touch grass,
Yep.
stand in the sun, look at the
Yep.
sun, drink water, stretch, and then I would do my first short breathing meditation. I use an app called Open, and
Okay.
I've used it for I think most of the whole time now, like over 2 years.
Okay.
Um, they have meditation, breath work, and sound.
Okay.
And I'll do the breath work first because it's usually shorter, but I usually like the more physical breathing one first to like get me waking up and in
Mm-hmm.
my body. So
Kind
I'll
of like
like
a
drink
primer.
water. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'll drink water, standing up, looking at the sun, touching grass. I'll stretch. Then I'll sit down on my bench in the backyard and do like it's usually a 5 minute, 10 minute breath work. And then that's my morning meditation. If I get another one throughout the day, that's the
Mm-hmm.
part that I've learned to be more flexible with myself and that it looks differently because it's kind of I still felt this need to do it like around 3 o'clock or before 5 o'clock to end my workday. My
Mm-hmm.
work days feel very different now and my
Okay.
structure looks different now. And I'm liking that and I'm leaning into that structure being more flexible now. And so now it's either out of a want to and I get to kind of energy where it's like, um, I want time to myself. I'm excited to clear my thoughts. I'm going to plan this for 3 o'clock, and it's not like a pre-scheduled thing.
Okay.
Um, and that'll be in addition to my morning routine, and those are great. Sometimes now I also do what you said is before a meeting, before a client call, before a long work session where I'm like actually have to heads down. I've been doing a lot of billboards and out of home stuff
Okay.
for a client, and so I'll know what task I have ahead of me, and I'll do like a 10-minute meditation before any one of those things. And that's allowed me to using it as a work tool and like a productivity tool feels different than like purely to do it for personal development or to feel better.
Mm-hmm.
But it's allowed me to again take that idea that I control how things are perceived to me and my own reality. And if something feels like it's coming in hot or stressful from a client or we need this right away, my mantra lately with client work is like, your stress is not my stress. Your schedule, while it affects my schedule, does not have how to affect. It doesn't have to affect how that feels for me. And
Mm.
meditation for me is my buffer to allow me to have that space to remind myself that like one, I love what I do. I get to do this. I get
Mm-hmm.
to work with these cool clients, change the energy from like rush and pressure and corporate feeling stuff, which I've been in before, and it
Mm-hmm.
switches it for me. And it's kind of just a simple perspective shift where it's like, I am so grateful that I get to be a designer or an artist or creative director. I don't care about the title, to make these pieces of art that people will see, and I'm working for a client that ships the work and it goes out into the world. And for me, that's scratching so many itches that I've had for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm proud of the work. I love the team that I'm working with. I'm working with friends through their agency, so I'm contracting through them. So there's like a nice buffer between me and the client. It's all good. But meditation for 10 minutes, even before I do a long stretch of work,
Mm-hmm.
allows me to shift my perspective to in a place of gratitude. And the big thing I'm learning lately is especially with scaling myself, doing more with my time, um, going after more of the idea of like a 15-hour work week, like those kind of goals of work life balance.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's all culminating in it depends on the energy and the state of mind and being that I'm doing the work out of. That will
Mm.
change everything. So if I'm doing it at a place of feeling behind, feeling like I'm in scarcity and I need to get this paycheck, so I need to do these designs and ship them fast as possible or not, either way, the energy of doing that out of that place versus like, I love what I get to do. I love my
Right.
job. I love the people that I work with. Yes, this is going to be like a hard 2 hours. So like I have to stay focused and like lay out these billboards and not make a mistake. But I get to do this. I'm so grateful. It will shift the creative itself, like how the
Uh-huh.
work ends up feeling,
Yep.
how I respond to emails, how I send the work. It's all from this place of like, you're not bothering me. You can't touch me. Like
Yep.
I'm dictating how I feel, and I'm proud of this work, and I can still send it from a place of gratitude because I survived the gauntlet of like setting myself up to do it and not get like pissed off
Yeah.
because of all the expectations and stuff.
So the on the corporate side, because with my 9 to 5, the constant demands from the external are
Yeah,
constantly trying to invade what you need, what you want, where priority, want this now, at
yeah,
whatever expense it is,
yeah.
to your sanity, to your health, to
Your time,
yeah.
your yeah, all of that. Uh huh.
And so the way I would describe it, hearing how you describe it, in my mind, the way it makes sense is all of those are ways to instill fear to get the result that is wanted on the external, whereas you're using the meditation to as a shield
Hmm.
of the from the fear
Hmm.
to then make sure that the love from inside out overcomes that fear.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
instead of operating out of that modality of fear, you're operating out of the modality of love, which has a very dramatic effect on not only how you work, but the end product that's delivered, the path to get there.
Hmm.
It has a cascading effect on everything that touches from that point.
Hmm.
And so the meditation, and add to this or correct this if I'm off. The meditation serves as that anchor to be in love instead of being influenced by fear.
Hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
And I would say in that metaphor, in that example, yes, it feels like I beef up my shield. And what I've learned is that it's not a shield to repel, or it's not an energy or an aura to repel or to keep away. It's to transmute. And that's the
Yes.
big word that's coming to mind.
Yes.
And there's
And
there's a
that's
difference between receiving,
mm-hmm.
being angry about it, and then still finding a place of love to doing it, but then sending it out in a certain, like if I'm
Yep.
taking their fear or energy of rush or whatever it
The
is, fill in the
love that you
blank.
have is so overwhelming. It takes their fear and transmutes it,
Yes,
changes it,
yes,
evolves it. Uh, um, I can't think.
totally.
I'm thinking of like a someone's handing like a ball of like clay that's all jacked up and mangled and stuff, and you're just kind of slowly
Hmm.
putting it back together in the love that you've got and handing it back to them. And they're like, ah, oh, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
it
yeah.
takes, so it's not like, you're absolutely correct. It's not a block. You're not fighting fear with love. You're
Yeah,
receiving fear
taking
in
it in.
love.
Uh-huh.
And then that love then
Changes it.
transforms
Yeah.
that fear into love. It's almost like the
I
the
call it
the
alchemy. I
yeah,
call it magic. It feels like
yeah.
alchemy. It feels like magic.
It fear becomes love fuel. Damn, that is a let me I'll say it this way. I've experienced that. I have the hardest time maintaining that state.
Yes, it is hard.
It's
Because it's not only the corporate job that's pushing against that idea or lobbing missiles or whatever it is, but it's
yeah,
literally everything around you. It's not
everything.
just it's news, it's media, it's culture, it's what's happening in the world. It's all of that is
The demands
fear.
of being a husband and a father,
Totally.
like
Yeah.
all the things.
Yeah. Um, but for me, I think that if let's just keep with that metaphor, if it's my ability to receive fear using my inner power and self and the act of love, transmuting that fear into being love again and
Mm-hmm.
exporting it out as love,
Yep. Yep.
giving it back out. If I'm able to do that, it's very much connected to the personal development. It's kind of it feels like I'm as able to do that, transmute that fear into fuel for love or love itself. I'm only able to do that as deep and as quality and as intensely as I've done that in myself. That
Mm.
feels like the you know, as within so without kind of
Mm-hmm.
piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
That feels like where the iceberg of the work that I've done was under the surface for the previous 3 years. So
Mm.
that now owning my own business, having my own clients, not having exactly a 9 to 5 schedule, but wanting it to feel more fluid and like I set up my days like to purposely feel different now. So
Mm.
I'm big into this idea of rituals, and I like the different days feeling different. I like on Thursdays I take an extra long walk because I don't have a 9 to 5, and so it's like I still have the things to deliver, I still have things to do,
Mm-hmm.
but I can take a 2 hour walk and like no one's mad. And so giving myself that freedom has been really good. But all that to say, my ability to work from the energy of love and transmuting and alchemizing fear or scarcity or rush or fill in the blank is only as good and as deep as my ability on the work that I've done interpersonally, subconsciously. It could only go as deep as I've gone with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another big thing I've been learning. It's fueled from inside, not from external sources.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from me. and
Yeah.
and it's not from me searching for, oh, I need another vacation so then I could unplug and then I could relax and then I could refuel. And then that fuel is what I turn back into work that I do for people. Like
Mm. Yep.
it,
Which is often the
it,
case for most people.
yeah. Or even just growing up in Western culture and in normal society, it's like even
Yep.
the act of buying stuff on the outside is suggesting that you need something on the outside to make you happy or have the ability to love people. And it's just, and that's okay to realize. But I think the whole thing is set up to be like school set up like that, like society set up
Yeah.
like you are a feeble human. You need outside help, resources, validation to make you do anything in life. We
Yeah.
will sell you that. We will give you that. We will teach you that. We will fill in that blank. And then this journey has been for me. I'm a very powerful being. We are all very powerful beings, but like the idea of flipping selfishness into a new word and new perspective on myself. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not the when I first started my habits in that 2021 year or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
the big metaphor was the oxygen mask, and I talked to Ali about it a lot,
Yeah.
and I've heard it used before. I've heard it like, but when I was experiencing that, and she felt it in our family of like,
Mm-hmm.
again, even bringing it back to current day, I can only take care of my clients and projects from a place of love and still have energy and presence to be with my family. I can only do that because I put the oxygen mask on myself first and I
Right.
survived. And I focused on myself and got over the idea of that feeling selfish or a waste of time or whatever. When you get comfortable with the idea of investing in yourself, will always return on your investment and is never a
Mm.
wasted time, money, moment because you're only as good as you taking care of my like me taking care of my family, me doing a job, me making creative work and putting it out into the world is only as good and as strong as I am as a person. And that comes from me, comes from my power inside. Um,
And that's a really hard
yeah.
thing to accept
Mm-hmm.
because like you said, the environment that we find ourselves growing up in, and for both of us having the ministry environment as well,
Yeah.
it's always on the external service
Yep.
is where validation is measured.
Yep.
And we very quickly become programmed to seek validation uh, through external
Mm-hmm.
stimuli.
Mm-hmm.
Good job, attaboy, well done.
Correct answer.
client approved,
Client
A plus,
approved.
like
Yeah. Uh-huh.
paycheck received, like all the
Yeah.
different mechanisms we use to confirm we are doing good or going in the right direction, or even more appropriately, probably on a level that I think many people don't realize, we are good.
Yes.
and
Yes.
and it's really hard when those things that once gave you the positive feedback start dropping off.
Hmm.
You start losing members of your team. You start
Yeah.
um, the ministry opportunities leave. You can't understand why the communication in your marriage sucks now.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
all these little things that start those positive feedback loops we find ourselves in. When those start getting removed and we haven't done the deep work of
If you
meeting
only know
self.
that way, then it's
Yeah,
devastating because you
yeah,
get none of that validation, love back to yourself. Yeah.
yes. So what was it like meeting yourself?
Mm. Oh man.
Did
See
you, did
that?
you
I
like
like
did you
that.
like the guy, or did you kind of not like the guy at first?
I liked him. I liked him a lot.
Did you have to
Um,
did you have to spend some time getting through some bullshit first to meet yourself,
um,
or was it a really quick
hmm.
natural introduction?
It wasn't quick, but it wasn't. No, it didn't feel like there was bullshit to get through. It was,
Like
man.
meeting a familiar stranger?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Like this quality of inner child is definitely it, but through the version of myself at that age. So it's like
Mm,
more.
okay.
It was like I was picturing another version of Dave, but like at that time in 2021 or whatever, I don't know, however old I was then, like 36 or 35 or
Uh
something.
huh.
It was like picturing his physical body, but with the energy and intentions and inner child energy, basically.
Yeah, yeah. The
That's kind of what I was
curiosity, the
picturing. Yeah,
vulnerability, the innocence, the
yeah,
naivety, like all those
huh?
things.
Yeah.
Mm,
It kind of felt like that's who I was meeting. But honestly, at first, if I'm thinking back and remembering, I think I was connecting to the unknown or God or source or the universe, whatever you want to call it,
mm-hmm.
first before I realized that was also connecting with my true self. I
Mm,
think I it felt like a not a void, but it felt like I was connecting to a higher power in meditation, or
mm-hmm.
like the blackness that you would see when you're through all the thoughts and the symbolism or starry color, whatever I'm seeing in meditation, didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel like I was getting to know like my true self yet. It more felt like I was like connecting with something big,
Mm,
something vast. I
mm-hmm.
associate that with like God, but then it kind of is like a ninja flip at some point where you're like, oh, that's me. Like,
Yeah,
oh, I didn't realize. And
yeah.
so that's why it didn't feel like too hard, too much stuff to cut through because it was so fun. It felt like a journey. It felt like exploring. It felt like adventuring. Like kind of all the stuff that you said, how from the outside it looks me and Allie like have this adventurous life
Mm-hmm.
outwardly.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of turned into that version internally, even
Mm,
though I'm just going into a black nothingness void.
yeah.
There's so much richness and depth and it comes through in different ways, I think, in meditation. Like me getting to know myself. I'm trying to think about that. It feels like a video game. It feels like playful.
Mm,
It feels like fun. It feels like it's all felt in your body, not necessarily through visuals
mm-hmm.
that I would maybe, this is me speaking about like, I would expect to be like, when am I going to see this like certain visual or like a dream? Like, so when am I going to see like full pictures of what I want or what it's going to, whatever. And it started more as like, I see a wisp of light moving around, but it has so much emotion attached to it that I'm feeling
Mm,
the emotions
yeah.
before I'm seeing anything. And
Yeah.
so I think it's like I was getting to know my emotional self before any of the like qualities of what make me me actually started to come into focus, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so then it was like pure love, pure light, like, and then when you're getting more specific, it's like it sparked childhood like instincts and attributes of myself that I
Uh-huh.
know I love, but I had turned off or I had
Mm,
let get dimmed in some way. And so it was more like an uncovering or like a One of my coaches uses the metaphor of a light bulb getting dusty, and like in subconscious healing work, you're dusting off a part of the light bulb that has always been on, it's always been powered, it's always been shining light, but you got gunk on it.
Yeah.
And me learning about myself and getting to know that version of Dave felt like I know I love to draw and paint. I know I love that. I
Right.
know I don't do that part of my daily job anymore, but like dusting that part off or having a meditation experience where I'm like thinking about making art as a child or the feelings of how good it felt to be like in my room on Photoshop for the first time, like making digital art and I'm just like in the zone. Like
Mm-hmm.
that part, basically the feeling is I would get the feeling first and then through journaling or processing it, it's like my it felt like my higher self or God or whatever was telling me that doesn't have to be for childhood only.
Mm.
Like I'm bringing that feeling back. You're remembering that you love that stuff because it can come out now. It's not
Right.
like, oh, you were an artist and loved to draw pictures. Like I would pause Disney movies and draw things on the screen, like
Yeah.
because I loved it and because I wanted to break it down and learn how to do that. Like that
Yeah.
energy doesn't have to go away. Um, and so it feels like dusting off, unrestricting, unbounding, letting loose something that has always been there.
Mm-hmm.
And meeting that version of me was like,
Like I remember you.
yeah, exactly. It
Like
feels
I
like
remember,
that.
like it's
Yeah.
I'm reminded of that scene from Hook when he's feeling Robin Williams, that little kid's feeling Robin Williams' face. He
Yes.
goes, "There you are, Peter."
There you are.
That's
He's like
it.
moving his cheeks
Yeah,
around. Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
That's
There you
almost
go,
what it's
Peter.
like. That's almost
Totally.
like what deep work is like. Is like we got
Yeah.
we're it's this child in us that's manipulating our cheeks and squishing our
Yeah.
wrinkles and be like, "Oh,
Yes.
there you are," and
Yeah.
then we get that interaction and that relationship starts coming back. Something you said, because I've gone through, this is familiar for you as well, where you have this passion, you have this love, and then you try to monetize it,
Yes. Yes.
and then it's no longer love.
Hmm. Hmm.
In
Yes.
like for example, when we were a short time we were shooting together,
Hmm.
it was a love, a passion. Then it became work.
Hmm.
Then it became dumb. Then it became like, I don't want to deal with this freaking stupid person because like
Yeah.
they're psychotic and like on a client side,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you and Ryan, like man, I wish I was more mature, but I like the opportunity that we had for stuff would have been great had we not been stupid teenagers.
Yeah. We,
Um,
we were
uh,
very young.
yeah, stupid, young, and naive and stuff. But that's the thing I think of is like we start with the best of intentions,
Yes.
of I love doing this, you love doing this, let's
Hmm.
do it together, and
Hmm.
then
Money
then
comes in.
then money comes into place, and then it's no longer love, then it's
Yeah.
no longer it becomes obligation
Hmm.
instead of curiosity.
Hmm. Hmm.
Is that what is that a part of some of the things that caked that light bulb with gunk is is you had this love of drawing, painting, digital art, and then I want to do what I love.
Hmm.
And then it became I can make money doing what I love. Then it
Hmm.
became this is my job. Then it became I no longer love this.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like is that kind of like the
Yeah.
simplified version of how it went?
Yes, and I've had lots of waves and versions of that along the way.
Mm,
But where I'm at now with it, one, working for myself is like shining the biggest spotlight on all of that because
yeah.
it's like I do want to I don't even want to use the word need to bring in money. I do understand we need to like live and support our families and you
Right.
know be in a society, but like I am changing my perspective on money to be like a yeah, shift that. But all that being said, what is bringing to mind is like the biggest thing I'm learning right now is that I am not only a designer for service. And that's the first rung or that's the first category or label that my higher self is going directly after in terms
Okay.
of like disintegrating it. or
Okay.
expanding it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I want my business to grow, if I want other opportunities that eventually do bring money or bring fulfillment or whatever it is, if let's say money's not in the picture yet,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm limiting it to what I've done corporately and what I feel I have the most expertise and skills in at this point and can
Mm-hmm.
deliver on and all of that stuff, to only be designer as a service at whatever level that is on a project, like it goes against the other stuff that I've learned about myself that is those passions that we just talked about, like
Mm-hmm.
the love of drawing and painting or even photography and video and music and all that
Mm-hmm.
other stuff. Like that isn't a part of the full-time work that I do, but
Right.
that's only because of me. That's me
Mm.
allowing myself to be in that label, especially when I'm the one getting my clients now. Like I could go out and get a client that is not in that realm, and that's up to me. But I think so. I've been learning that on one level. For me, it's hitting right now of like I am bigger than just a designer as a service.
Mm-hmm.
Like I am bigger than that as a person. I have more to offer than that. I know that. Other people can feel that from me. It's just up to me then to figure out that funneling process of how opportunities get to me and
Right.
how quickly I overly reduce myself to a specific job. And that
Uh-huh.
happens functionally through me is like how I scope new work and projects as the opportunities come up. That part has changed a
Okay.
lot because I'm not falling into the trap that I've been in a few times before, which is like, and this is just since I started my own business, like as of, 8 months ago or whatever. I did branding for a client right away out of the gate in like, what would that be? July of last year. And they came in with like, we need a brand for our startup, AI startup. And I'm so fresh in my own business. And I'm like, yes, great, let me do it. And I go straight into the kind of the routine of I know I could design this. I know I could solve your problem.
Yep.
I know I could do it well. I am thinking about money at that point. So I'm
Yep.
like, let me scope it at this or whatever. And then by the end of that one project, which was only like 2 months long, I'm doing the landing page at the end and I'd already got paid 50%. And then I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like this feeling of doing the work at the tail end. I feel like I should be doing other stuff. Like it was still ambiguous at that point. But what I
Mm-hmm.
was feeling is like, I'm limiting myself and it feels uncomfortable. And I
Mm.
limited myself from the beginning because I scoped it in a certain way and I said yes to certain things and I agreed to the schedule and all of that. And that's on me.
Yep.
But I think when I've done that before, I wasn't aware enough to, one, because I wasn't working for myself. So I had the safety of like, my benefits are still getting paid for. I still have a
Right.
consistent salary coming in, so I don't have to worry about it. This was like all on me, so I felt it a lot more. But me limiting myself felt like, oh, I don't feel like I'm using my strengths in this moment. I feel like other
Mm-hmm.
people can be doing this better than I could.
Mm.
And being okay with that feeling of like, that doesn't mean I'm not good at it or that someone else being good at something does not mean that I suck at it. That's been something I've been learning at, you know, because
Yeah.
I'm running into these project boundaries. Let me say it another way. It feels like my higher self is sending me these projects of
Okay.
working for myself that are like one test at a time. And it
Okay.
feels like a new kind of test because I'm working for myself and not supported by a corporate business.
Mm-hmm.
And that first test was like, oh, yeah, you want to do branding for startups? Here you go. Here's a nice client. It's very easy. You
I'll
know,
give you what you want.
yeah, here's what you want. You said you wanted to do branding. Like let's try that. And I'm like stoked on it. And then at the end, it's literally sharpening and tuning what I want to offer using this as a test and example. And then I
Mm-hmm.
get through it. I'm like, okay, next time I do that, note to self, I don't do landing pages anymore. I hire out for landing pages. I'm like a very experienced designer at this point. I know how to manage teams. I know how to send work out. I know how to do all of it. Why am I still the guy doing the like boxes on a landing page
Right.
of like a one-page website at the
Yeah.
end of the branding process? And that was just like a very clear lesson for me. Like, hey, if you don't like it,
Don't do
outsource
it.
it. Don't
Yeah.
do it. Don't do it. Don't
Either,
include it
yeah.
in your package.
Either delegate
Yeah,
it or
whatever.
delete it.
Yes. And so I had a series of learnings. So that's on like the very functional business, how I support my family side of things, where it's
Uh-huh.
like it's been expanding out what I do, bringing more of what my passions would be, or stuff that I know my higher self is telling me, like, you want to get into this, you want to create art for the sake of creating art, you want to express yourself, you want to be a creative person and not
Mm-hmm.
worry about what the money payment for your expression is going to be.
Right.
Um, um, what else?
Can I tell you, man? Like that is a. There's been moments. I freaking had one last night.
Hmm.
I couldn't like I'm laying in bed. I couldn't fall asleep till like almost 1:30, 2 o'clock. Uh, because I'm sitting with that basically exact thought of I want to be able to trust that I can create and still be taken care of.
Yes. Yes.
I'm so tired of feeling like I'm the one who has to make it happen.
Mm.
You know?
Make what happen?
That what I do results in provision for me and my family.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Like
Okay.
there's that obligation. There's a very
Yeah.
real, tangible,
Hmm.
responsible obligation that we are responsible for our families.
Yes.
But as a sensitive creative, which
Hmm.
I'm willing now to accept that I'm a very
Yes.
sensitive dude.
Yes. There you go.
Um,
There you go.
um,
And you're a
and
creative dude, and
yeah,
you are a creator. Yeah.
yes,
Yes. You're a creator.
and all I want to do is to be able to take the
Exists.
take the external observations, internalize them, and repackage them in a way, and basically expose the total nakedness of who I am in what is created, and hope it's appreciated,
Hmm.
and without the obligation of I need to monetize it.
Yes, I feel that.
That is a really hard. That's a big tension
And I'll tell
for
you,
for me.
that's, yeah, makes sense. I'm in my version of that in the same boat.
Okay.
I think where I'm at in that journey for me is I'm setting it up in my head and even kind of in my business to I'm literally telling it to myself, like, one, I'm buying myself time because I own my schedule now,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm viewing these avenues of income. I don't know. I want to say it more clearly. I'm setting up my corporate clients to sponsor my artistic expression
Oh. Okay.
as a stepping stone to eventually, if I want to be in a place where I am creating full time, whatever I want, whenever I want,
Mm-hmm.
and that act of doing that whenever I want is sustaining my family. The
Mm-hmm.
only way I know I will have a chance at getting to that spot is if I, one, try it, and two, have it feel good as it transitions.
Mm.
And having experienced corporate layoffs or how fast stuff can move and change at different, capacities, what I
Mm-hmm.
know I don't like and doesn't feel good to me is when it, like, is a complete surprise and
Yeah.
very a lot of pressure right away, and then it's like, I don't like sink or swim. Even though I've gotten
Yeah.
good at change and navigating change and growing in change, and understanding that stress on your body equals muscles being grown, like I get that, but I still don't prefer like
Mm-hmm.
the drop dead, like, I'm quitting my corporate job and I'm starting my own business and it's feast or
Right.
famine. Like, I don't want to set it up to work like that for me. So
Right.
I'm seeing it as these ramps, an off ramp and an on ramp, or experiments, or softer versions of getting into eventually being able to create only what I want when I want to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and right now I picture it in my mind as like my corporate clients, which I like the work I'm doing, just on an efficiency side and a scaling side, I'm learning to get less hours but better quality work on
Mm-hmm.
my corporate clients.
Okay.
And what was once a 40-hour job became a 30-hour work week for me. And then I'm trying to compress that to 15 or 20 hours of work doing the same amount of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my goal. That is all to set up basically the idea of these corporate streams of clients being patrons for the other side of my business or creative art,
Mm-hmm.
and giving me time and space to do that. I'm still in the middle of that right now. That's
Okay.
kind of where I'm at. My goal was to set up, I wanted it to be February. I think it's going to start February, like on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care about the exact start date, but I want to buy myself 30 days of personal focus to approach that personal focus with creating stuff that I've wanted to, side projects, whatever it is. Not go down the road of like fixing the house or doing stuff that is laying around, like
Yeah.
not go that route, but like treat it with the same discipline and respect that I would a corporate client, but on
Mm,
myself for 30 days as my first shot of kind of what you're describing.
mm-hmm.
But because I set up my business so far to do 50% up front, 50% at the end, I'm
Mm-hmm.
about to complete some big projects that ended in February, and I'll use that 50% in the end to basically buy my March or buy my February 10th to March 10th
Mm,
to set myself up to do that for 30 days. I will still have to do client work in those days. It will come
mm-hmm.
up.
Yep.
Um, but even me setting that as a goal is my first time uh, doing that from a place of working for myself and further separating my artistic expression that wants to come out, all the stuff that's being uncovered. It's separating that from the need to do that to make money.
Right.
Because I've done that before. I've had with this hat I'm wearing. Like I started making hats in early 2020, and then the business model idea comes in. Like, okay, how do I scale this, or how do I start selling
Yep.
hats, or how do I start putting this out in a
Yep.
way that like I at least recoup my money? Like
Yeah.
I've learned so many different versions of that that this is my first time trying that without the pressure of money. And I'm
Mm,
blessed to be able to say that I'm setting it up like that. And it's all due to me making the conscious decisions to shape the part of my business, which is now my whole, like I work for myself, so I'm able to do this to like sponsor this other side of things. The feeling inside of me though is that like one, something big is coming with my personal expression becoming my main way of income,
okay.
but I don't have to put that pressure on at the start because I think it'll quell the idea or the passion or the whole
Yeah.
thing together.
Yeah.
Um,
It's almost like it's a super fine, like you're holding this
totally.
idea.
It's very delicate.
It's super delicate. It's like this fine dust powder, and the slightest breeze will just, and it's
Yeah.
gone. And you're like,
Yeah.
no. It's like you're trying to hold fog. It's like you're
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
hold
Yeah.
fog, and you're like, please don't go anywhere. I don't want to screw
Yeah.
this up. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
I'm right
man.
there. I'm right there with you because I believe all people. One, I think all people are creative, and I
Yep.
do not like when people say like I can't draw, I can't paint, I can't fill in the blank, I can't design, I can't do what you
There's
do.
a lot more to
Like,
creative than artistic expression.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And people's.
Everyone creates.
Uh-huh.
It's we can't help but to create
Hmm.
because of who and what we are.
Yes. Yeah.
The image we're made in is to create. Now, not
Yes.
everyone's going to be a painter. Not everyone's
Yeah.
going to be able to draw, but
Yeah.
everyone can create something. Like I've met some of the most creative people who they're creative in how they relate with people.
Yeah.
Like that is
Absolutely.
also a creative aspect, or how they love. Like for Danny,
Mm-hmm.
the way she creates is how selflessly and in intentionally
Hmm.
and fully she loves the people around her. She's not an artist, but that's artistic.
That's
Like
artistic.
that's
That is
artistic.
artistic.
Um,
And that is creating, and that is
yes,
emanating something.
she
Yeah.
creates a environment of love that I have no idea how she does it. You know, like that, like to me, that's like Sistine Chapel type stuff that I'm looking at. What
Cool.
the environments that she creates, I'm like,
Cool.
this blows my mind. I have no idea how you selflessly love like this. I have no idea how you have patience with our kids like this. I have no
Yeah.
idea how you treat jacked up, manipulative people with grace and patience like you do. Because I want to punch them in the throat, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, you know, like
Yeah.
that. That's a
She's an
beautiful.
artist in that aspect.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes, she's a relational artist.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, so I fully agree with you that many people are creators. Everyone's a creator to some extent. I think they have this idea that what they have an idea or have accepted the lie that what they create has no value.
Yes, yes. Or isn't enough value to sustain them, or kind of the realities of the world creep in
Yeah.
at that point. But yeah,
So then,
either they don't see value in it themselves, or it's
yeah,
not enough to keep them safe or
yeah,
sustain them or whatever. Yeah.
and that's I think that's the tension for being a creative is there's that you want to be beholden to self and find the
Yes.
love and satisfaction of creating just for the sake and the fact that you created.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I listened to Rick Rubin's book.
Mm-hmm.
Dude,
Yeah. Creative act. So good.
yeah, so good. That should be mandatory reading for every human
Yeah.
being,
Yeah.
and especially because he reads it and his voice is
So
so
chill.
good. I was like, dude,
The dings at the end of the chapter
oh,
just make me feel so good.
so good.
Yeah.
Um, but that was a oh man, I finished that a couple months ago, I think, and that was a very perspective changing, introspective listen.
Yeah.
Because again, like going back to what we had mentioned earlier, is all so much of our feedback is based on the external,
Hmm.
the value that someone else places on it. And then we get attached to that. Then we start clinging to that. Then that becomes the only metric by which we can feel the gratification, feel the value,
It becomes
feel,
us. It becomes our identity, like
and
you
then
said.
and then we
Yeah.
start contorting ourselves
To fit that. Yeah.
to 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 either fit that or in an attempt to gain the thing we're no longer receiving. And then
Hmm.
by the time we look back at ourselves, we're like this twisted, mangled,
Yeah.
hunchbacky type creature.
Yeah.
And I think that's the deep work is almost like the chiropractic of the soul. it's like
Totally.
it's like
Yeah.
it's you get back to I love the what you said with the the childlikeness
Hmm.
of Dave, because that's what it is we start getting reintroduced to the who we are before all the external starts gunking it up,
Absolutely.
before it starts putting the you have to look this way, act this way, move this way, think this way. And we start getting reintroduced to that version of us without all those parameters put on it, all those constraints that we've accepted or self-imposed on ourselves. And it's a super freeing thing, but it's terrifying
Hmm. Hmm.
because I don't know for you, but for me, a lot of what the conditioning that I underwent was, and it's many different factors. There's
Totally.
not one thing.
It's family, it's
It's
church, it's
family.
work, it's school, it's
It's
eating,
everything. It's
everything.
being human.
Yeah.
The freaking humanity is hard. Like being
Yeah.
being a human is really really hard.
Yeah.
I love my buddy Sam. He's constantly reminding me. He's like, hey dude, being a human is really hard, but it's a beautiful experience. Like
Yeah.
it's okay that it's hard, and it can be beautiful and difficult at the same time. It doesn't
Yes.
have to be either or. And I think that's where the conditioning kind of comes in, is we kind of rest and settle into the accepted lie that it's binary. It
Yeah.
is good or bad. And where scripture says, and Jesus constantly points to, is like, no, joy and sorrow are held in the same hand. Joy and
Mm-hmm.
sorrow coexist. It is not joy and sorrow separately. It is they are together. And humanity, our innate humanness, our innate holiness and goodness also sits within the struggle of trying to figure this shit out.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
the pain of wanting to be seen and being rejected for what is shown.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and
The need to conform versus what feels naturally wants to come out, and that push and pull.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so there's that tension. That's where I think we get into some sticky places as people. We start
Yeah.
looking for. I mean, man, I can't even tell you how many times the modes and methods I've utilized in my life to escape and distract from that tension.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
Because
that's again back to what's been conformed or programmed into us, is to how to deal with it usually version one that you learn or see modeled for you is escape.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of things built into our society that are like the easiest way to escape that you
Yeah.
could imagine. I think it's only gotten easier for us,
Yeah.
um, and
And
all of
so
that. So
sitting
yeah, I get that.
sitting with self
Yeah,
is that is quite possibly one of the hardest things I've tried to learn to do.
yeah,
And it's not just sitting with self. And I love what you pointed out. It's without judgment. You're an
hmm
observer
hmm
to the thoughts you have, the feelings that come up, the oh, I can't remember. It's either Richard Rohr or Thomas Merton that was describing that grace is basically like the willingness to hold something and then immediately also let it go. And that's what meditation and add to this or correct me. That's what meditation has allowed you to kind of experiment with and explore, and that muscle that's allowed you to grow is the ability to hold what is in front of you and then immediately let it go, so that way the next can come and be held, and that's what is keeping you locked in present.
hmm hmm
So the meditation has been the thing that has helped you remain present and anchored in present. And I think that's really quite possibly one of the hardest things to do, especially as an emotional creative. Like
hmm
we're always so attuned to the environment around us.
And we're picking up a lot. You're storing stuff. You're remembering stuff. You're taking snapshots.
Yeah. And I always
Especially if
used
you're
to,
visual at all, or if you're
yeah.
experience like we all are. Those moments in childhood, even good or bad, it could happen with the good stuff, but
Hmm.
those snapshots that your psyche, that your brain, that your body is taking snapshots of, is what makes your identity, and
Yeah.
it's super powerful.
Yeah.
And it could be good stuff stored in there, or hard stuff, traumatic stuff stored in there. But I would say yes, it is like meditation is. Oh, you said hugging it. That's a great metaphor. Holding space for it, like, is
Hmm.
another like metaphor or idea where it's like, as she hugs me, nice.
Oh,
Um, Giving it the tension and space, even mentally, where you come up against a feeling, good or bad, whatever it is, but giving
uh-huh.
it time and space, not rushing, not judging. That is called healing. That's what healing is.
Uh,
It's being present with fill in the blank
mm,
long enough to have it be able to express what it wants to express to you. That's what pain is stored in the body, is
yeah.
like your attention and not rush energy with whatever it is the thing that transforms it. That's
Yeah.
the other part of like what I'm talking about with alchemy and like work and stuff. That's just
Yeah.
another version of like in meditation, if I'm reminded of an experience in childhood. Coaches are really good at this because, or therapists, because they're
Uh-huh.
prompting you to go deeper until you hit
Yeah.
a block that you have or an experience that you didn't know was there until
Yeah. And
someone
then you
else
gotta sit
reflects
with
it
it.
to you, and you gotta sit with it and take
Yeah.
time with it.
And I wonder if
And
that's what when Jesus is talking about, like, hey, remain in me, remain with me, abide in me, stay grafted to me. I wonder if maybe that's what he was kind of talking about, is like, hey, just sit with it.
yeah,
Sit with it.
yeah,
Let it work itself out. But
yeah.
dude, you
Okay,
gave me a lot
I'm gonna,
to
yeah, I
go
want to
ahead.
end with a few wrap up summary things because of what's coming to mind.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Hit me with it.
okay, meditation, sitting with yourself is a big theme.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I learned on the more tail end of that experience for me, or the more recent kind of advice I would give on top of that, is self love in that process
Mm-hmm.
is a game changer. Because even if we're talking about how I was viewing talking to my younger self, or how that would express, how does that energy come up expressed for me?
Mm-hmm.
If you're picturing the version of your childhood self that is the thoughts and the body version of that childhood self, you're still picturing like, oh, I did something wrong,
Yep.
or I am a bad kid, or I'm a boy,
Yeah.
so I'm trouble, or whatever it is. When you
Yeah.
go back to these different snapshots in time, there is still baggage that's carried with those shots, the
Yeah.
snapshots. Allowing yourself to have so much love in your present moment for those past versions, all versions of yourself, that when you are meditating, uncovering that version of yourself.
Uh-huh.
You're doing it from, yes, the place of the observer, but also the place of like, that kid did nothing wrong. That
Right.
person along the journey, any snapshot, like this was super helpful for me. I don't know how it would hit for you, but like picturing not even the idea of like sin or no sin, but just like picturing yourself in the essence of who you are at any snapshot of age.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't make a mistake. You made the best decision that you could at that time with what you had, with
Mm-hmm.
what context you had, with what your parents were doing, with their situation, with what high school was like. Even in the parts where you feel like you made a quote unquote mistake, if you view that self, visit that self, be with that self, that version out of self love,
Mm.
it changes the game because it lets you get to that part of like, okay, what's that person trying to tell me and express to me? And if you go, yeah, it's just if you approach it with like not, oh, I did something wrong, so what can I fix? But like, what does
Mm.
that person need to express to then let it air out and then be gone? That's where you start fully healing, fully satisfying, fully unrooting, fully untangling, unblocking parts of yourself. Because the self love piece is like critical. And I think if that's my first version of that was oxygen mask, but I think version two of that is like, I can't make mistakes. I may have made stuff that decisions that I learned from, and that was part of my path and my journey. But like, if you're viewing the past versions of yourself, approaching that like Matt did the best version of that time that he could with what he had, and I'm just in tuning and giving time and attention to that version, whatever he wants to say, um, and having that approach of self love. Yes,
When are you done?
right about now.
Right now?
So the thing I'm hearing, and we can end with this, is
Yeah.
your advice to me is, Matt, you don't need fixing, you need love.
Yes,
Dude,
From
I fucking
yourself.
love you.
from yourself.
Dude, I think that's amazing.
And you could call it inner healing, you could call it subconscious
Yeah.
healing, you could call it reparenting,
Throw whatever
like you could call it
label. Yep.
therapy, but like it's you re-coaching, re-loving yourself in the parts where you felt like you didn't get loved,
Mm.
or let yourself express yourself in that way. And
Mm.
it's all different versions of that. I have plenty of work examples that I go through in my mind, or
Yep.
previous bosses. It could be very corporate, it could be very parent related, it could be very you sitting in your room by yourself not feeling loved for XYZ reason. But
Right.
it's all, I think, some flavor of I didn't receive what I needed, my body and mind remembered that caused a trauma or a blockage,
Yeah.
and then 20 years later I'm experiencing that. So
I'm still
now,
making decisions because of
totally,
that.
totally. But what I learned, and with the perspective of self-love still, is I don't, time and space aren't real. This is
Uh-huh.
a crazy part to end on, but we'll just end on
Yeah.
it anyways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Time and space are, they're not real. They're constructs. They're illusions.
Yep.
And
For
so
our
like,
mind to give context to things.
yeah, I've had the feeling of going past to a past version of myself, even a month ago, healing something that happened or viewing it a different way, and you feel the effects of that healed version of yourself now. But you
Yeah.
literally
Yes.
time travel.
Yes.
You could time travel back in time, heal a part of previous Matt, and it can affect you right now.
Dude, I've never thought of it like that. We're full on
I've
multiverse.
experienced it.
Yeah,
I've
but
experienced it.
I fully experienced that too. We're full on like Marvel Universe, multiverse
Totally.
traveling. Like,
You are.
oh, dude, we're gonna be getting some. Dude, we're having another conversation.
Absolutely.
Because we're gonna be
Let's do
getting
it.
into some really fun, wacky stuff. It's gonna be awesome. But,
Yeah.
dude, thank you so much for sharing your insights and part of your journey. It's super helpful to me, and it's actually very, very relevant to the place that I find myself in currently. And the place I don't want to continue to be in. But that reminder of, hey, Matt, you don't need to be fixed. You just need love. It's funny because I thought of the other day in my own practice was the thought I had was like billions of years of evolution and still the greatest expression of human DNA is a hug.
So good. Yeah.
And I was like, maybe you can just shut up and give yourself a hug, Matt.
Yeah.
And so I think that maybe that's what we need to do is just, hey, slow down, give yourself a hug.
That's so good.
Awesome. Dude, love
Thanks
you, bud.
Thanks for the chat.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much, and we'll set up another one again.
Sounds good.